Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Slow Food NYC's annual Food Almanac event. And we really want to thank our speakers first and foremost, Marisel and Karen. And my name is Melanie Scott. I'm one of the board members. And on behalf of the entire board, we want to thank you so much for being here, for spending your evening with us. And before we kick off, I just want to say a word about Slow Food and our mission. Our mission is good, clean, and fair food for all New Yorkers. We embody that mission in a number of ways. We have a Snail of Approval Award for restaurants that embody this mission. We have a Snail Blazer Award for food leaders who embody this mission. And we bring together people for educational events like this and also social events. And a side note on that, we will be returning to in-person social events starting this summer. So keep your eye on the calendar for those dates coming up. And of course, we also have a very important part of our mission is our Urban Harvest program. And all the donations tonight, your tickets and any additional donations go to the Urban Harvest Farm at Ujima in East New York. This is so much more than just a farm. It's a community center. It's a gem in the community. During the pandemic alone, we donated through your donations and through the farm's resources, more than 2,700 pounds of fresh local produce to food pantries and the Coretta Scott King Senior Housing Facility. There's youth programming, there's free education, and it's, very small but mighty. So thank you for all of your donations. We will be popping up the donor box link in the chat if you have any additional, if you're so moved to give any more, it really does go a long way for this part of our mission. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Marisel Salazar, who's a food journalist, and she's going to kick us off with our speakers.
Fantastic. And thank you so much, Melanie, Slow Food, and all of the Slow Food members who have joined us. This is a really exciting topic that we will be chatting about today, cautious optimism. Cautious optimism. What does that mean? As we've come out of the peak pandemic, starting in March 2020, we're kind of like in this new normal, as it's been so heavily coined, where we've pivoted, we've changed, we've undergone transformations, and I am so excited to share with you not only a little bit about myself, but about today's two other speakers. So as Melanie said, I am a food journalist. I cover restaurants on a local, national, and global scale. Additionally, I am a recipe developer for culinary publications, particularly with a Latin lean. I've interviewed everybody from senators to politicians on food policy, celebrity chefs, but also undocumented restaurant workers and hot dog street food vendors who don't even speak English as their first language. So my range within the food industry is really a bird's eye view. And that's also why I'm so excited to introduce to you two of these incredible folks who I have here with me. First and foremost, we have Karen Washington, who is the founder of Rise and Root Farm. And we have Matthew Jozwiak, founder and CEO of Rethink Food in New York City. And before I dive into the questions that we have for today's chat. And of course, folks, if you have a question or something that just pops into your head, we also have a chat box. We'll be monitoring for comments, and we'll leave some time for Q&A towards the end of our discussion today. But anything that comes to mind, please give us a shout. We love hearing from you. I really want to hand it off to both Karen and Matt to introduce themselves, who they are and what they do a little bit further. So I would like to pass it off to Karen Washington, founder of Rise and Root Farm.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here today. Thank you, Slow Food, for inviting me to speak tonight. So my name is Karen Washington. I tell people I'm a farmer. I grow food. I feed people body, mind, and spirit. I've been growing food for over 37 years, starting mainly in community garden work, believe it or not, community garden work. And from then, really looking at the food system through the lens of food justice and food sovereignty. I coined the term food apartheid instead of using the term food desert. And so I'm an activist making sure that food is a human right for all and not for some, and just bringing up the conversation, the difficult conversation why in the greatest country in the world where we grow enough food and we waste enough food, we still have hunger and poverty. So that's what I'm all about.
It's incredible. Thank you so much, Karen. I can't wait to chat with you throughout this hour that we have here. And now we have Matt Jozwiak, CEO and founder of Rethink Food.
Yeah, thank you. Especially thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to share our work. Rethink, my background was simply as a cook. I worked in restaurants, dishwasher, busboy, like every possible position except for manager or owner. I never made it to the management level, but I got to understand food from a bunch of different angles, whether that was working in hotels, small restaurants, love Madison Park, and over time realized, very similar to what Karen was talking about, there's a tremendous amount of food that can go to people, and we can actually create a better system that could help everybody. So Rethink, founded in 2017, has grown over time. And what we do is we work with restaurants in the neighborhoods that we partner with to help them utilize their excess food, or we pay them to utilize their excess food to make meals for local community centers that are well received, culturally celebrated, and fit the religious specifications that are needed for certain communities.
That's incredible. And I'm really fortunate that I've gotten to experience Matt's incredible work and Rethink's incredible work firsthand, not only as a journalist, but also working alongside Matt at some of the restaurants. I want to kick it off with, let's say, a softball before we get into the meat and potatoes of what we're chatting about today with both of you. Back to March 2020, it was bleak, it was not a good time, but a lot has changed since 2 years ago. And I'm curious to know, how have your respective industries changed or grown since March 2020? If you could give us a brief journey of how it was then to where you are now. And I'd like to start with Karen. What were you doing in March 2020, Karen?
Well, it was very difficult, especially for communities of color. The pandemic really hit mostly Black and Brown people and mostly marginalized communities. The virus was rampant. And as a result, people who were already having issues around food access was now, with the health issue with COVID on them, it was very, very difficult. And so during that time, we said to ourselves within our communities, what can we do? What is it that needs to be done? And so we got together community, community leaders and nonprofits got together to say, we need to grow some more food. We have this beautiful, vast structure of community gardens and urban farms in New York City. And so we decided, instead of sitting down and being complacent about what was happening, is to start to be proactive and really getting people to let's start growing more food. Let's start getting people involved in making sure that they're eating healthy, because at that time we didn't have the vaccine. And so the only remedy that people were thinking about is how to stay healthy, and staying healthy was to eat healthy. And so at that time, people started to look at the food system differently, coming together, making sure people were fed. And so that was the beginning. I'm going to stop there because I guess you'll get into the meat of what has transpired since then.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I was thinking about that time. It was like really crazy. I mean, I think Rethink would started with this kind of like really practical idea of like doing the work that's needed to do. It's like kind of very much like cook mentality. And we, in the beginning of the pandemic, it was a concern for our staff as we were producing, a couple thousand meals a week, and we wanted to make sure we were spread out. So we asked restaurants for space. Then we realized, holy smokes, these teams are totally incredible working together. Why break them up with our team? So let's just leverage that team, which turned into, we need to cut down shipping costs with like the few of our friends that own restaurants that we know that like allowed us to like commandeer their kitchens, which turned into, we need to find restaurants in neighborhoods closer to the community centers we're working with, and then asking the community centers where the food should come from. And I know that seems like a really simple idea or like a very obvious idea, but sadly and kind of embarrassingly, it wasn't to us, and it wasn't to, the way that the food banking system in general works is to ask, where do you want your food to come from? And when we realized a way that we could progress was it was a pretty incredible moment, like letting the CBO drive decision making around food quality, quantity, size, stuff like that, has led to just much higher impact and much higher success. So though the world was crumbling around us, and it was an extremely hard, difficult, scary time, and we were all working 7 days a week. If we were awake, we were working. The outcomes of it and the excitement of having this kind of possible chance to make better food and create better meals for communities, like we were driven, and it made us, it inspired us to do more.
What's really incredible, it sounds like you and Karen are tackling the same problem at different ends of the spectrum, or from different angles, both with a common goal in mind, but with multiple ways to reach it. And now, seeing where we were from March 2020, I am curious to know, Karen, where do you think you are now? And Matt, where do you think you are now? Like how drastically or not drastically have you come since the beginning of the pandemic? Which is also the point of this conversation, is cautious optimism, So I want to ask, you to think amongst yourselves, what does cautious optimism mean to you?
Well, I think for the first time, people are starting to understand the importance of growing food, the connection between access to food, access to land, access to water. And I think the common denominator that I'm seeing now is this sort of communal social capital, communal wealth of communities coming together, taking back their power. I think for so long, the decision-making powers around food has always been central around big companies and a political system. And now people are saying, wait a second, if we can come together and we can start owning our power, we can start asking people not what we need, but what we want. And I think that's the sort of shift in the dynamics that I'm seeing. Also, what I'm so happy about is to see so many of my people who are out in restaurants and businesses now saying, wait a second, I can own my own business. Why should I be in the kitchen? And so, and they have the idea. So they're coming together, starting their own businesses, starting their own co-ops, farm stands, restaurants. Because for me, the element of getting out of poverty and hunger, for me, has always been the key for entrepreneurship. Getting people to understand their place in a capitalistic system, not that is extractive, but a system that holds the community at hand, and that whatever happens within that individual businesses or farm, that those dollars and those resources stay within the community, builds upon the community. And also what I'm starting to see, so many young people, want to get into this food movement, and they're asking questions, and they're demanding change, and they want access to land, and they want to grow their own food, and they're asking those difficult questions of why, why is it, and not settling for anything but an answer.
Yes, incredible. Yeah, so it's come from beyond, just feeding people and making sure we get the proper nutrition, to now folks are owning their own time and space. They're owning themselves and creating entrepreneurship. Yeah. Matt, how far have y'all come since March 2020?
It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, for sure, like every day, and I think that, the fact that, there was this restaurant resiliency grant that went into the New York State budget that got funded for $25 million, that didn't get funded this year, which was exactly what should be happening. We realized the best thing that can happen is exactly what you're saying. It's just keep the money. Sorry, I was going to swear. Keep the money in the community. Just keep the money in the community. It's literally not that hard. It's really, really, really not that hard. And so Rethink, our metric is around, trying to keep as many dollars out of. So we have a board that funds, our overhead, my salary, and a couple other things. And it's just about putting resources into the community, cash. And resources means cash. It doesn't mean an entrepreneurship program and the privilege to apply for a loan, right? It means money, like just put money into the community. And we saw this in Chinatown. Chinatown is where Rethink went first, simply because Chinatown was affected earlier due to, people being stupid and prejudiced and not wanting to go to Chinatown in February. And we put, over the course, we with 7 restaurants, we sponsored around $250,000 a year. And like stores, people painted storefronts. People like, the community was beautified. Like they just like, and we didn't say, spend this, we said, you need to make X amount of meals with this money, whatever else you do with it, like we don't care. And we're going to be here year over year over year, month over month over month, year over year. Other programs that did similar things, they would do it in these really like finite, like 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 weeks things, and they would pay more per meal. But like Rethink had a similar budget to New York budget to something like World Central Kitchen, and that's say World Central Kitchen bad, disaster relief. But we had about 1% of the amount of partners, because we decided that if we stayed with the 75 businesses that we worked with, we could see that growth. And it's incredible. It's like actually not that hard. So when that didn't get funded, that money should have been restricted to certain neighborhoods. It should have been restricted to certain people. And it also, they could have done it a lot better. And we're like this close to figuring it out. If we can figure this out, it will be a huge game changer.
I mean, that's funny that you say that, because that was my following question for both you and Karen. What is the most pressing resource that your nonprofit, your industry needs right now in order to keep growing, in order to keep helping more people? And where would be the best or most likely place to get it?
Karen, you got it.
MONEY.
Exactly.
Cash. Yeah. Cash.
Yeah, that the 4-letter word. What is it about giving people the resources that they need? I don't understand it. What prevents, you talk about people, having difficulty, being in poverty, don't have, money, you don't have resources to feed themselves, and yet you're so tight. What is it about? And what's so sad sometimes is that you sit back and you see how, as a great country, don't get me wrong, we'll spend billions and billions of dollars to help other countries. But when you have the people in your own country hurting, we need money. We need those resources. Money, MONEY.
I couldn't agree. I'm like very publicly anti-government, because I feel like they just seriously, like, we could use that 30% and just like let people save that 30% of their paycheck. That would be like a much bigger step towards solving some of these issues than using this money in such horrible and indirect ways. Like the fact that the federal government can give everybody $600 a month, right? But then we have to serve, we don't care what you spend it on whatever the hell you want, 600 extra bucks a month. But then nonprofits have to fill out grant applications that we have like really smart people, everything. We like sit and we read these things and we're like, what is this thing? And then it goes through an approval process and a bidding process. There's no trust. That's like one of the biggest problems in this industry. The government, like nobody gets into nonprofits to try to become a billionaire. We're not trying to like, there's no like thing. We just want to feed people. I like to cook. I like to cook for people. I've always liked to cook for people. If we had that trust where the government would actually let us do our work and allow us to share and celebrate in that work, it would make them look great. But then we have to spend hours and hours and hours and hours applying for $15,000. It cost us $25,000 to apply for $15,000. Like it's just totally out of control the way that the money flows. And I
hope the powers that be are listening to this conversation. Although they put, somebody out there is listening to this, and I hope it really does make an impact for both you and Karen, because y'all just want to feed folks and keep people healthy and alive and create a circular economy that supports the community. There was something that Karen, you touched upon a little bit earlier at the start of our conversation, and it's around, do you think that more people are interested in where their food comes since the start of the pandemic? And why is it for folks to be aware of their food systems, both at the beginning of the cycle where you come in, Karen, and then at the end of the cycle where you come in, Matt, in terms of food waste and food insecurity?
I think people understand now, wait a second, there are 7.8 billion people on this planet, and only a handful of companies control our food, control our land, control water, and control seeds. And so I think what people are starting to understand, especially people who have been impacted, by the processed food, the junk food, the fast food, seeing the impact it's had on their health, are starting to question the food that they eat, and knowing that, healthy food makes a person healthy. And they're starting to realize that we have two food systems. Sorry to say, we have two food systems, the haves and the have-nots. And this pandemic has really, I think, really exploded in a way to people started to realize, taking a closer look at the food system when they were told all of it, that the food system was broken and needed to be fixed. And people used to believe that, but now they know that the food system needs to change. And we have to start having those hard conversations. I think in the beginning, we were complacent and silent because we believed that the food system was for everybody, that everyone had the same access to food, and that the government was going to make sure that we had healthy food and healthy water, and realized that wasn't happening, that someone was sleeping, and so now they realize that, they have to start asking those questions, demanding healthy food, demanding food that is not only local, but affordable, you know what I'm saying? And not this sort of two-tier food system that we see where, okay, so organic food is for this type of people and it's more expensive. And so you have to be, get this sort of food. And people are starting to have those hard conversations and wanting to grow their own food. During the pandemic, my email and phone was off the hook because for the first time, people wanted to, how do I grow food on my front yard, my backyard, my windowsill, my terrace, get involved in the community garden? And that's where the beginning of the conversation, and it's never ending now, as people now want to understand where their food comes from, because that's part of human nature. That, we've lost that connection when it comes to agriculture. The word culture in agriculture was being lost. Now that's coming back, and people are sitting around and having those conversations from grandma to grandpa, abuelo, like, wait a second, we got our food from the farm. We never went to a grocery store. And they're having those hard conversations because that's part of their legacy. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to speak to young people. I'm excited to sit down and again have the conversation with my elders about what it was like being on a farm in a garden. And so you're having these conversations that you've never had before.
Amazing. And Matt, what about you from your end of the food cycle? Do you see a lot of folks asking questions about not only, to Karen's point, where does my food come from, but now where does my food go if it's reached end of cycle?
Yeah, I think that people really are getting excited about who's making my food and what's actually going. I hope the end of the fast food movement, the end of the fast food movement needs to happen. It absolutely needs to happen. The fast food is a pandemic in and of itself. And it's probably the biggest problem that we actually have in food. The accessibility, the 24 hours, the pricing, it's all geared towards a lot of these issues, but it's faceless. And we saw some incredible stories, KDOs and In Brownsville, one of my favorite, Betty Park in Harlem, makes 500 meals for local church, and she puts a label on every meal. We don't put labels on anything at Rethink, but she puts a label on her meals that she has going out, and people were like, "Oh man, I want to go to." I mean, everybody wants to go to Mana's Soul Food in Harlem because it's an incredible restaurant. But like, people were like going to Mana's and being like, "I want to I got this meal and like I got paid on Thursday and like now I want to come eat here. Like this is incredible." Like this idea that it's just like us versus them, or like it's only homeless people, or like whatever it is, it's just like so far from the truth. It's about time wealth. It's about regular wealth. It's about like all kinds of different things. But people really just want to be cared for and nourished in a really simple way, and they want to know that somebody's making their food with love and not just pumping it out of a machine. I think that's our biggest thing.
That is amazing. And I really appreciate what you just said about time wealth. That is a great phrase to coin something that is a resource and a scarce resource for a lot of folks. Karen and both Matt, we talk a lot about activism when it comes to our food. So I kind of want to pull it back to something that's really exploded since the pandemic started, in tandem with folks being more curious about where their food comes from and where is it going, about food systems, food justice, and food activism. Do you think social media has helped create and sustain activism for your particular industries? Meaning, has social media given, let's say, everyday folks like us greater opportunities to participate in community events, to be, let's say, their own personal activists, but also, to open up their pockets and make financial donations to different causes? And now that we have these social media activists and a lot of social media justice, so to speak, do you think it actually makes a difference?
Oh, without a doubt, because before social media, everything was more localized. The food system now is a global movement. It's a global movement. And so you're seeing people from all over the world with the same issues around food access to land, having these similar conversations. I mean, hunger and poverty is not isolated in the US, it's all over. And so people are finding ways through social media how to attack the problem. How do we work together? What are the questions we need to ask? What are the demands that we need to reach out to? How do we have more control? And so the advent of social media has opened Pandora's box, has really made the connection from being just localized to this global movement. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to speak to a group of farmers from South Africa. Who knew? Who knew that, again, wow, because of social media, because people are now becoming aware of food systems, and also we talk about climate change. Climate change is global. And so we're starting to have those hard conversations because of social media and because we're in this internet phase where we are now, there's no more barriers. So, you can speak to one person here, one person in another country talking about similar issues.
Exactly. Do you think in spite of all this, or because of all of this global interconnectedness, Karen, that it's making a positive difference, that it's pushing something, whatever that thing is, forward in the right direction?
I think it is. Like I said, I think the years when we were isolated before social media, there was complacency. We just let, things just went on the way they were. And I think, I'm sorry to say, but sometimes it takes something like a pandemic to really, pinpoint exactly what's wrong with systems that are in place, especially when they impact so many people who for so long had limited access to food and water and housing. And so now, people are starting to, like I said, question the food system, question the political system, and demanding change collectively. It's like one person at the time was like one person would go in and make a stand, but now you're starting to see this movement of people coming together. Look at women's issues now. Are we going to go back? Women along with men are now coming together again, making people accountable, challenging the status quo. And that's what I feel. And that's what makes me so excited about seeing this change.
I love that. That is awesome. Matt, what about you? Has social media been a great force and partner with Rethink Food and also bolstering that food justice, that food activism?
Yeah, I'm really bad at social media, and so I wish I was better. I really struggle with it. I think that I think Karen, you said really resonated about giving everybody a platform. That's why you continue to be negative, because I feel like I've been a little negative. But I think it's really the press is more the problem than I actually feel like the social media is the solution. And I think that if good publication, all of a sudden EFAP, emergency feeding programs, all this stuff just disappeared. Coincidentally, inflation went up highest in 40 years. Things are really bad. And they were really, really bad during the pandemic, but they're really, really, really bad now. And we just decided that, the press is just going to cover other shit. And all of a sudden it moves away. We also the press won't go and get, because of clickbait. And I think that's actually part of this social media issue, is because it has to get enough clicks that are going to Business Insider's social media profile will get 600,000 likes. They need those stories, those juicy stories that are going to get people to read because they're entertainment and not news. But I would love to see some more accountability on researching and staying by something a reporter has researched into and checking in with it. A lot of people wrote about Rethink, and it's fine. It's great during the pandemic, but okay, how's it going 2 years from now? What changes have we made? What things we have? But I'm worried a lot about the dissemination of information. Yeah, and I'll leave it there.
I will say I agree with you on that front. As a member of the press, it is something that, within, you consider media and press and publications that folks read, a part of the food system and helping to either hurt or solve the greater problem. It is something that we desperately need to work on and fight within our own system to make positive changes. To your point, Matt, about making sure that important topics aren't just covered for the clicks and the website traffic that they give us. I will tell you personally, one of my most passionate beats that I cover, it's also one of the most difficult to get their voices heard, are undocumented immigrants and food labor within restaurants. And it's something that is really difficult, especially as an independent journalist, to cover for those reasons. So there's also the helping hand that press can lend, and I really hope to be a good partner too. I know I've written about Rethink Food numerous times in the past. And Karen, my gosh, I hope to write about you. But there is a helping hand that the press can have. But to your point, there's also some drawbacks to it too. So that's something we as journalists also really need to think about as well. Karen, you were going to say something?
No, I wanted to agree with Matt, because the social media is different from the press. The press, that's another animal by itself. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I agree exactly what he said when it comes to the press.
Because it's the only way for us to get stuff out. I mean, nobody cared that we gave, I think, 50 or 75, $250,000 grants to restaurants owned by women and people of color. We couldn't get somebody to write. We couldn't get anyone to write about that. There's a tremendous amount of money. We gave out a lot of money to small businesses in New York, and it's just so challenging when you're not the flavor of the week to get things out, unless it's negative. And it's the negative stuff just gets picked up in it. Daniel, somebody has a bad meal at 11 Madison Park, it's 10 times more clicks than that, what I just said. And so it is scary and frustrating and worrisome how technology has driven press to a place where they are characterized. You wrote something in the newspaper and people read it, but now you can measure who's reading what, and it's kind of scary.
It is. It's something really interesting that I think we all consider too. I myself, as a journalist, I consider this too when working on stories. It's there's this weird balance, and I hope this gives greater transparency to all folks who are wondering, well, shoot, how does getting a story out there work? And, there is a huge part of it that is SEO and clicks and advertisements. And it's a really unfortunate part of the job, a necessary evil, if you will. But that's one that has driven the press and publications to monetize for that content in order to support a more fair, impartial, unbiased, and free press, so to speak. So my hope with that is that, more journalists will continue covering the good stuff and the good works that you are doing, Karen, that you are doing. And it's not just the good works, it's the bad works too, without fear of having to reach a click threshold. But shoot, hearing it from both of you has definitely kind of heightened my, what I cover, and only fires me to continue doing more of it. I want to wrap up quickly so we have some time for Q&A from the audience. I see we've got some great comments in the chat. Karen and Matt, what are some things that people can do to take action when it comes to your respective industry? How can Slow Food members help you?
Well, it always for me is making the politicians accountable. I think for so long, like I said, we've been silent, complacent, and we've had politicians and the food system work for us. Now we have to turn the tables and start making sure that whoever we put in office, that they are doing the work, that we make them accountable, that we continue to ask those questions. And for all of us, we need to be proactive instead of reactive. Don't wait until things happen. Constantly making sure that, your community is healthy, that, your community needs the resources that they need by being proactive and speaking up and speaking out. And then also, I always tell my allies who have power and privilege is to support the work. Support the work. Don't be silent. Don't not, and writing a check is all well and good, but being involved is more and more important. Help lifting the community, push to the forefront the leadership and voices that need to be heard. That way you can support one another, and hopefully, we can stem the tide again of hunger and poverty. Is a huge challenge, but at least, we can start having those hard conversations about it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Matt, how do you think Slow Food members can help? Slow Food members are not, how can anybody help? What's an action that they can do to help with your respective industry?
I completely agree. The accountability thing for me is great. And I can tell you one very public left congresswoman who came and supported an organization that we work with dearly for a photo shoot, bought a truck, disappeared off the face of the planet, right? They use nonprofits to get elected and then leave us. That is what happens. It happens all the time.
You got ghosted, Matt.
Father Mike at Hungry Monks got ghosted by AOC, I'll use the names. Got ghosted, shot, photo shoots, videos, all kinds of shit. Probably spent more money on the media, Secret Service, and transportation. And then when he needs help, because EFAP and all these emergency programs are down, he used to distribute 20 pallets a week. He's distributing 3 pallets a week of food. Gone. Won't respond to an email. And we need to start, left, right, who cares? They need to be held accountable. They're failing their citizens, and they need to be held accountable. And if it's me going on panels and telling stories, and the right's as bad, they're both bad. They don't stick around. I think as Slow Food members, supporting organizations, trusting your organizations. I cannot say that enough. Trusting your organizations. You're going to have great ideas and you're going to want to collaborate, and that's awesome, and you should. But nobody knows about Karen's program better than Karen. So and she's gotten this far because she's done amazing things. So trusting people, doing it, being a part of it, celebrating the work. I think that boards and nonprofit, I'm very blessed. I actually genuinely mean this. I'm very blessed with my board of directors at Rethink. I have a very supportive board that helps me out. And when I'm going through a hard time, professionally, personally, dealing with the stress of running something, they'll be there, they'll talk to me, especially my chair. I'm very grateful. But there's a lot of boards out there that'll just nitpick little things about like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Like, we're doing everything we can. Like, that's why we're here. So I think trust, supporting with cash, collaborating, extending resources, extending connections, and holding politicians accountable, which they have zero accountability, is really important.
Awesome. Wow,
Well,
that was.
I do feel like the government is actually the problem.
Mhm. Don't worry, I'm sure they're probably listening to this conversation, with our phones and whatnot. And they can watch the recording too, just in case they're not on this call.
Yeah.
A couple of questions for y'all that we got in the chat. Do Matt or Karen know of a program that is successfully moving money towards communities for food?
Well, last year, we started this Black Farmer Fund. Black Farmer Fund because, again, the impact that food was having in communities of color. And the question was, out of 57,000 farmers in New York State, only 139 are Black. And so putting out there to try to find ways that we can be self-sufficient and self-reliant without asking, for money, and telling our story that, we want to feed our family. We don't want to be on the food and pantry lines. We want the resources, we want the access to land, hear our story, we want to feed our communities, and that's not happening. And so going around and speaking to communities and hearing donors hear our story, we've been very successful this past year of helping 8 businesses, 8 farms, and 8 business startups, so to the potential so that they can feed communities. And also, I think the greatest part when it has come to the Black Farmer Fund is the education component of getting people to understand what financial education is all about. No one talks about what investment looks like in terms of, like we talk about, social capital and communal wealth, thinking about making money, having resources, but not being extractive, like, wait a second, let's bring this back into our community. Let's support businesses that are feeding our community. Let's support businesses that are helping our young people, our seniors. And so I think for me, that's been a great challenge and a great improvement in the recent work that I've been doing.
Now, there's another question similar to the question before. Are there philanthropists, foundations, or companies that give resources that could act as an example?
I think I really like, similar to what you're talking about, Karen, is Sky High Farms is starting a program where they're giving away, where they're starting to work with entrepreneurs from predominantly Black entrepreneurs that are looking to start a farm and helping them grow it and doing it and stuff like that. I think it's really important. Emma's Torch is I'm a huge fan of Emma's Torch in New York, giving people the resources to do it. But also I think that spending money in the same way in communities that you for us, it's some of the best restaurants in New York City exist in the South Bronx. La Mirada, incredible restaurant. Go to La Mirada, buy stuff from La Mirada, spend money there, appreciate these products, because these are what make this city of New York great. That you get to have this beautiful food. I was joking with my partner recently because she wanted to go on vacation and we don't have a lot of money right now. And I'm like, but we can go to Mexico, we can go to Italy. We can go back to China. She's Chinese. She's like, you're an idiot. But it's that's how I feel. That's what makes New York so special. So, I think spending money in communities, voting with your dollar, and don't go to Chipotle. Go to the little corner Mexican restaurant, and maybe it's 4 subways stopped up. Do it, or down, or left, or right, whatever. Just go. I think that's important. And I have to do my shameless pitch. You can always donate to Rethink.
Always, of course. I mean, I second La Mordada. They're one of my favorite. They're an undocumented family-run restaurant in Mott Haven in the South Bronx, and they make absolutely incredible Oaxacan food. Really lovely folks. Probably one of the best meals that you'll get in New York City. Right there. It's right there. We have a few minutes left. I wanted to reach out to the Slow Food member audience right now if there's any last questions, which we just got in. Thanks, Cheyenne. I got you. If appropriate, curious to hear of any programs that are connecting urban farms to restaurants that y'all know of.
You know, so we have this group in the Bronx called the Bronx Farm Hub. And the Bronx Farm Hub it consists of 18 of community gardens and farms in the Bronx that are selling to restaurants, donating to food pantries and soup kitchens. And you can get that information through Bronx Green Up program, which has really been supporting us meeting every other week. We started 2 years ago, and we meet every other week just to talk about what is it that we need to do, especially this time. What is it that we need to do to grow food, to feed our communities? What do restaurants want? You know, what do community centers want? And so Bronx Green Up program is very, very instrumental in getting that information that you need.
That is awesome. I want to just make sure, what's the restaurant on Mott Haven? Oh, La Mordada. I'll type it in the box for you right here. It's fantastic. Definitely check them out. Say hi to everybody there. They're really great folks. I want to just wrap this up before I hand it back off to Melanie by asking both Karen and Matt, where can we find Rise and Root Farm, Rethink Food over on social media? What are y'all's handles so everyone can follow?
Yeah, so I'm always on Facebook, Karen Young Washington, Facebook. My handle for like Matt, I'm not really, I do Facebook and I do LinkedIn, Instagram is Car Washer. I just try to be out there. I don't want to spend time on social media when I need to be doing the work. But I'm at Rise and Root Farm. So, we have community days the last Saturday of every month starting in June. So June 25th will be the first Saturday from 10 to 1 for people to come out, be at a farm, see what we're doing. And then we do a tour, and then we do farming Olympics where you'll get down and dirty. We're in the Black Dirt region of Orange County. So be prepared, do not wear sandals or sneakers. Be prepared to play in the not the dirt, I should say the soil, and have a good time and share a meal and share a conversation. We're always open to that.
I love that. That's great. Everyone, please follow Karen and Rise and Root. Matt, where can folks find you?
We're at Rethink Food and rethinkfood.org. At Instagram's at Rethink Food, but yeah, come check us out. And if you think of ways to collaborate, if you reach out through any way at all, we love to just talk about things and figure out things, and we're here to be helpful.
And if any of y'all have a hot tip for a member of the press, if there is something that you think we should be talking about, something that the media really needs their eyes and ears on, definitely please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Marisel Salazar. I'm a food journalist covering restaurants and food systems, both on the local and global scale. You can find me on Instagram at Marisel M. Salazar, also on Twitter, because if you want something done, definitely tweet about it, y'all. Twitter is a great place to get your voice heard. And I'm at Marisel Salazar on Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us. To Karen, to Matt, this has been so absolutely incredible, and to all of the Slow Food NYC community members for your time this evening. I know that is a precious resource. We just talked about it, time wealth. So I know you can't get that back. So I really hope that this was fruitful for you all. And I definitely want to pass this back off to Melanie from Slow Food NYC.
Thank you so much. This was just truly an incredible discussion. I really, we're so honored that the three of you were here. And as a food nonprofit, I think we'll take all of this wisdom that you shared and discuss what we can do to help continue to support our communities and act in ways that you've recommended tonight. So thank you so much. And to all the members who joined, we appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Look out for our next event. We'll keep you posted in social. And again, this was just such a wonderful evening, and thank you all.
Thank you so much for having us.
Bye.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.